Have you ever felt like you know a lot, but at the same time, not enough? We live in a world where almost everything can be learned in minutes. If you want to play the piano, there are thousands of tutorials. Want to learn digital marketing? Free courses are everywhere. Want to master Eastern philosophy? It's all online, just a few clicks away. Knowledge, once rare and sacred, is now abundant, immediate and accessible. But this abundance comes with a cost. We've never had so much information, and yet we've never felt so lost, so anxious, so uncertain about what we truly know. The question becomes unavoidable. Are we really learning, or just collecting fragments of information that never take root inside us? A 2020 study by Harvard Business Review found that over 70% of people who start online courses never apply what they learn. Not because they don't care, but because there's too much content, too many distractions, too much speed. We're living in the age of fast food learning, quick, shallow, disposable. And in the process, we've fallen for an illusion that knowing more is the same as understanding deeply. According to Digital Information World, the human attention span has now dropped below 8 seconds. That's less than a goldfish. It sounds like a joke, but it's not. It's a real data point. What does that say about our ability to focus long enough to truly master something? The truth is, we've been trained to worship speed, not to revere. Process. We're taught to rush, not to dive deep. That's why so many people quit halfway. Because real learning isn't glamorous, it's repetitive. It demands patience, humility, silence, and none of those things go viral. We're surrounded by flash mentors, people who learned something yesterday and are already teaching it today. But where are the ones who spend years repeating the same stroke? Where are those who go deep, even without applause? Where are the ones brave enough to not skip steps? The answer may lie in an ancient philosophy, a quiet Japanese path that's been around for centuries, but may be more relevant now than ever. Shuhari. 3 syllables, 3 stages, an invisible cycle of learning that crosses time, culture, and craft. Shu means to follow. Ha means to break. Ri means to transcend. This concept began in traditional Japanese arts, like Aikido and Kendo, but it's not limited to martial arts. It's found in calligraphy, in the No theater, in the tea ceremony. And more than that, it lives in any sincere learning process. Whether you're learning piano, medicine, entrepreneurship, or self-awareness, but Shuhari is the opposite of hurry. It's a path that honors time. It's a path for those who understand that mastery doesn't begin with brilliance. It begins with surrender. Picture someone learning to paint like a master. In Shu, they simply copy, no opinion, no invention, just faithful repetition. In Ha, they begin to adapt, experiment, and explore. And in Ri, they stop painting pictures and become the painting itself. This journey is invisible. And because it's invisible, it's ignored. Today, we're trained to jump straight to Rai. We want to transcend before we obey. We want to innovate before we understand. We want recognition before we're ready. And that comes at a cost, a growing sense of emptiness inside those who feel they're always almost there, but never fully grounded. That's why people quit instruments, languages, projects, careers. Because they were never taught how to carry the weight of the beginning, because they never had time for Shu. Hurry is sabotage disguised as efficiency, and the fear of looking like a beginner is what stops us from ever truly growing. Maybe the biggest enemy of real knowledge isn't ignorance, but the superficiality disguised as expertise. And maybe the quietest revolution you can create in your life is to slow down, return to the beginning, honor the process, because only those who honor Shu can confront Ha, and only those who confront Ha can discover Ri. In the minutes ahead, we'll walk that subtle path. We'll move through the 3 stages of Shuhari, but more than that, we'll explore what each stage awakens inside us. The resistances, the doubts, the invisible transformations that shape the soul of someone who learns with truth. Now that the path is open, it's time to take the first step. And like every true beginning, it starts in silence. Picture yourself standing in front of a master. He doesn't speak, he doesn't explain, he just repeats the same movement again and again. You watch, you imitate, you make mistakes, you correct, then you repeat, and repeat again. That's the first stage. Shushu isn't glamorous. It doesn't trend on social media. Shu is the silence of obedience. It's the act of following without questioning, accepting form before trying to change it. In the West, this idea feels uncomfortable. We're obsessed with originality. We want to stand out, disrupt, invent from day one. But the East teaches a different wisdom. In Shu, originality doesn't matter. What matters is absorption, humble imitation, intentional repetition. In traditional Aikido dojos, beginners spend months just learning how to walk in a straight line. It seems pointless, but it's the foundation. Without it, any technique collapses. It's the same in Japanese calligraphy. Before students even write their own names, they copy the same kanji characters hundreds of times. Black ink, controlled brush, perfect stroke. One mistake, and it starts over. It's as if the art is saying, before you leave your mark, respect the marks that came before you. Psychologist K. Anders Ericsson, cited by Malcolm Gladwell, found that world-class experts share a common pattern: 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. But not just any practice. Focused, consistent, thoughtful repetition. That's Shu. And here's where the first real conflict arises. Ego. The ego hates repetition. It wants to shine, to impress, to be different. But Shu demands silence. And because of that, most people quit early. They confuse humility with mediocrity. But it's not. Shu is the soil where roots grow deep. Without it, the tree of talent collapses in the first storm. But eventually, the movements feel too tight. The form becomes familiar. The body begins to explore. The mind begins to question. That's when we enter the second stage. Ha-ha is the break. It's the moment the student begins to break the rules they once followed. But now, with awareness. In Ha, the learner experiments, adjusts, innovates. This is where style is born, where voice begins to emerge, where the art starts to reflect the artist. But Ha isn't rebellious, it's not disrespectful, it's actually the deepest form of respect. Because only someone who truly understands the form can transform it without destroying it. A perfect example is Bruce Lee. He trained in Wing Chun with intense discipline. He absorbed it, mastered it, but eventually he felt constrained. He broke away and created Jeet Kune Do, a style with no style, fluid, free, adaptable. He once said, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. That's Ha. Transformation rooted in understanding. But Ha brings its own dangers, because this is where ego can grow again. The learner feels unique, advanced, better, and may stop there, but those who continue, who persevere, reach the final stage. Riri is no longer about technique, it's about presence. It's the moment when the practice disappears, and all that remains is the being. The master no longer thinks about movement. He simply moves. The art flows through him. He becomes the art. This is when the pianist plays without looking, when the tea master pours without effort, when the warrior wins without fighting. This is when body, mind, and intent are one. Japanese philosopher D.T. Suzuki once said, when you truly learn something, it leaves you. That's Ri. When the form dissolves, and the practitioner becomes the essence itself. In Ri, there's no need to show, no desire to be recognized, no competition. The artist paints and burns the canvas. The master teaches, and vanishes. The sage speaks and then falls silent. It's the freedom of quiet mastery. But ironically, Ri brings one last challenge. Some confuse transcendence with spiritual ego. They think they've arrived, that they're above everyone else. But the true master returns to Shu. They become a student again, because they understand. The path is a spiral, not a straight line. Shu Ha Ri isn't a ladder with steps, it's a circle. You move through it again and again, and with each round, you are someone new. Even the most modern environments reflect this. In agile software development, teams begin by following strict processes. Shu, then adapt, HA, and finally operate with freedom and creativity. Rai. A 2022 MIT Sloan study found that the best performing teams unconsciously move through these exact stages. Shu Ha Ri is not just a Japanese tradition, it's a universal pattern of growth. But its most profound impact is not on what you do, but on who you become. Because Shu Ha Ri isn't about mastering a craft, it's about mastering yourself. Now that we've crossed the three worlds, only one question remains. What comes after mastery? Does the master still learn? Does the journey end? Or is everything we've learned just a way of remembering something we've always known? In the next chapter, we'll discover why the highest stage of mastery isn't about showing what you know, but letting it disappear, because sometimes the peak of wisdom is emptiness. Picture a master, not the one who speaks loudly or dazzles with words, but the one you barely notice, who observes more than he corrects, who teaches without seeming to teach, who has no need to prove anything. That is the true master. Ri, the final phase of Shu Ha Ri, is not a finish line. It's the beginning of something else, more subtle, more profound, often invisible, because the true master disappears into what they do. In Japanese, there's a concept essential to understanding this stage. Mu. Mu translates loosely as emptiness, but it doesn't mean absence. Mu is presence without weight. It's the silence between two notes, the space between the inhale and the exhale, the fullness found in what's left unsaid. The master of tea, after decades of practice, no longer thinks about the position of his hands. He just serves, and in that one simple gesture, everything is present. Time, tradition, intention, care. This is the state where knowledge no longer needs to be displayed. It simply exists. Zen philosophy calls this action without striving, doing without the need to impress, being without the need to declare. And this is when the true essence of Shu Ha Ri is revealed, because the point is not to become better than others. It's to become no one, free from ego, free from comparison, free from the need to be seen. Spiritual author Eckhart Tolle says, real spiritual growth happens when you get tired of your own story. It's in that exhaustion that the invisible master is born. In the West, we're trained to win. But in the East, true wisdom doesn't seek a spotlight. It dissolves into the ordinary. Take Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's greatest swordsman. After countless victories, he spent his final years painting, carving, and writing about emptiness. In The Book of Five Rings, he wrote, "The way of strategy is not to defeat others. It is to not be defeated by yourself." That's why true sages often vanish from public view. They step back, not out of pride, but because they understand the final lesson cannot be taught. It can only be lived. Philosopher Alan Watts once said, "At the moment you try to grasp wisdom, it slips through your fingers." That's why Rai has no shape, because it no longer needs one. It appears in the cook chopping onions with full attention, in the grandmother sewing without hurry, in the gardener watering the same plants every day without applause. These are the invisible masters, and they are everywhere. A 2021 study from University College London explored flow states in professionals with over 10 years of experience. They found that the most creative and productive moments happened when these individuals forgot they were working. They became what they were doing, effortless, ego-free, complete. That's Re in its purest form. But here's the secret. The cycle doesn't end there. After reaching Re, the true master returns to Shu, becomes a beginner again, because they understand that life moves in spirals, not straight lines. The tea master returns to his mat. The warrior trains with novices. The artist faces a blank canvas once more and begins again. This time, more silent, so everything connects. Shu, follow with humility. Ha, break with respect. Re, disappear with grace. And then begin again, lighter, emptier, fuller. That is the real learning cycle. And perhaps the real life cycle too, because in the end, it's not about how many books you read, or how many techniques you've mastered, or how many people admired your work. It's about who you became, how you act when no one is watching, how you serve a simple cup of tea, and maybe, just maybe, the highest level of mastery is this: to live with such presence that the world transforms even when you say nothing. True wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers, and if you can hear it, it means you've already begun to become what you were always meant to be: silent, present, master of yourself.